things like how to work with development teams. Although you may not have context because you've never done it before, there is value in someone actually telling you and showing you, like, this is kind of how it works. These are the questions that you should be asking. These are when you should be asking them. These are when you should be showing your designs, things like that. And I like to tell my students, like, save this portion of the class for when you actually get started and you have notes and references to go back to.
Hey everyone, welcome. It's Nannearl, as I mentioned before, and today I am joined by our guest, Ashley Janelle. Thank you so much, Ashley, for taking the time to talk to me and talk to the people. And so, I guess we can get started. Ashley is a UX designer, among many things. She's doing so much. So I am going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself to the people.
Thanks so much, Nannearl. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This platform has been awesome. I've loved to see that it's been growing for you. So I'm Ashley Janelle, a UX UI designer at Caterpillar, and then a UX coach. So I teach UX designers how to go from beginner to experience and to land jobs. So that's pretty much, in a nutshell, what I do, just basically making sure that aspiring UX designers have everything that they need to really become successful when they get into the field.
No, that is for sure needed right now, especially because, I don't know, it just seems like the field it doesn't seem like it is. It's ridiculously hard to get into, and I'm not sure if it has something to do with like people not wanting, or like companies not wanting to like recruit junior level folks or whatever it is. But yes, what you're doing is very important, and it's been really cool to see like how I don't even know like when you started for real. I feel like I met you before it started. Is that right?
Yes. Yep. It was like right around that time we were trying to like figure out different things like that we wanted to do. And I was like, okay, I think I'm going to go this way. So yeah, it was right around that time we met.
Oh, cool. So before we jump into like more about you and like what you're doing, I would love to set the scene a little bit as far as like what your definition of UX is. I feel like there are a lot, and they mainly kind of focus and center around the same things, but I always think it's really interesting to hear people's different perspectives on like what the actual definition or what their definition of the term is. So what is it for you?
So for me, UX is really I like to give the short version. Like, UX is how something works. UI is what it looks like. So the how it works is, and there's so much that goes into the how it works. There's like UX research. So basically, how do we actually solve a problem for a user? And basically what goes into that, because it's different every time. So just basically trying to figure out the strategy of how something works in order to solve a problem.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. That problem piece is, I feel like, the most important piece that you mentioned as far as UX and like what it means. It's like you're always solving a problem. Sometimes people forget that they're trying to build the solution before they even know what the problem is. So I'm glad you brought that up. So now that we know that, tell us a little bit about your background. Like, what's your story? How did you get to where you are right now?
So I actually had a little bit more of a traditional approach to UX. I know now it's very common for people to transition into the tech industry from other fields, but I actually went to school for interactive arts and media, so like web design, graphic design, game design, and then worked for a little while as a graphic designer, web designer, doing all the things, working all the places, agencies, in-house, and just really felt like I was bored. I didn't feel like I was being challenged. And I felt like there was a different part of my brain that I could be using, and that I wasn't utilizing it. And I just felt like I wanted to make a pivot into the tech industry, but didn't really know how. And so I had a former boss who actually told me about UX. And I literally got in the car and I Googled it. And I talked to a couple of friends about it just to kind of gauge, friends who I knew were in the space, either product design or UX. Then I applied for a boot camp and was in that boot camp full time like 2 months later. So that's how it all happened for me. It happened very quickly. But I just knew that I wanted to change, and I was in the position where I could make that change. So I made it, and it's been one of the best decisions that I made, especially kind of like earlier on in my career. Like, okay, not really feeling this. We're gonna pivot.
Yeah. No, that's cool. So it's funny because I hear a lot of the time like people's different backgrounds when we're talking about UX. I'm like, oh, how did you like get into this field, or how did you start out? Like, what did you do? And I feel like UXers have so many different stories that come from so many different backgrounds, and I think it's cool that we're having this conversation and you actually came from a design background, like you went that traditional route. And so I feel like I haven't talked to too many people who have done that. And
Hmm.
so I don't know, it's very interesting because it's this whole thing about like you don't need a design degree to get in UX or like to do UX things. And so
And
it's
you
like
don't.
a big push on that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so
you don't. But it's been interesting training people from the other side. So, like, whereas I had more of a traditional approach, so I was taught about color theory, typography,
mhm.
balance, all that kind of stuff. Like, I was taught that, and so what kind of comes second nature to me has been interesting to reverse engineer that process and teach it to somebody else. That's been a really interesting part of it all for me.
Oh yeah. So I want to hear more about like what's the most challenging part about that for you. But before we get into that, like what is the biggest difference, I guess, that you've found, or differences that you found now that you've transitioned or like has been transitioned into UX from the more visual side of things?
Yeah, so I mean, really just the process of how you actually solve a problem. So, like traditional web designers were not taught about user feedback. We weren't taught that you're designing for someone else and not yourself. Like I worked for an agency. Prior. And so I did a lot of working with different companies, and it was really about what I wanted to design. And I was designing all kind of things. I was designing menus for this company and packaging for that company, and it was all about whatever I wanted to design, which was cool. Don't get me wrong, but it does get to a point where it gets a little bit redundant. And so I think that the UX part of it really allows me to have a little bit more purpose when designing, and things make a lot more sense once you understand why. So it's not just that we're making a button a certain color, we're making it a certain color for a reason. So understanding that reasoning and being able to tie the two together.
How do you feel about I guess that difference, like that there was like no reasoning behind the more visual design aspects that you were taught.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really does a disservice. And it's crazy because, like, I think I graduated right as the switch was probably being made. Like, the tide
Mhm.
probably came a few years after. So now they're having UX courses and, design thinking and all that stuff is being implemented into the curriculum. But I really do think that it does a disservice. But I mean, it's just more a part of, the journey for those of us who have transitioned into the more UX side of things versus just kind of stay visual, to really get that understanding of why things happen. So yeah, it's
Okay.
been it's been interesting on that end.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So that's good then, I guess, that now they've taken more of a UX approach in addition to like the visual design stuff. Okay. I didn't
Yeah.
know. I wasn't sure if it was like still the
Yeah.
same. It's like people are just doing this on purpose now that they know. But
No, yeah, I think it's crazy because like UX is still new. Like it's weird because, you might see job descriptions where they want 10 years of experience, but it's like it's still a new field. People come with different skill sets and different backgrounds. So you might have come from like a psychology background or a visual design background, and then you kind of figure out how to get in. But a lot of us did not have that training. Even people who, like myself, went to school for design. It was more of the front
mhm.
facing, work.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Okay, so you switched into UX and you went through the boot camp. How long was it before? Actually, I want to hear a little bit more about the boot camp that you went through too. But before we get into that, how long was it before you actually got like your first full-time UX job after your boot camp?
Yes, it was about 3 months. So I finished the boot camp at like the middle of January and I landed a role at like the end of April. And so that was, it felt like a long time, but because that was the first time that I had ever been like not working. But in hindsight, it's really not. And I think the longer you get into the job market, you understand that that's really not a long time. But yeah, it was about 3 months.
Okay. Okay. That's actually like really good. I feel like that's a success story when it comes to boot camp.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit more about your experience, like going through your boot camp and how it prepared you for your first UX gig?
Absolutely. So I think the boot camp experience for me was a really good experience. So like typically if you go through like a full service boot camp for UX, they're going to teach you everything from end to end. So from the research all the way to the UI design part. They don't really dig, well, the one that I did, they didn't really dig too much into the UI design. They went over like color theory, type, all that kind of stuff. But still, like, I'm sure as you know, UI design is something that you have to practice. It's not
Mhm.
something that you can develop in a number of weeks. So for me, because I had that skill already, I focused mostly on the research and on the strategy portion, which really helped me because, you know, I kind of already had the other stuff. So I really made sure that I did all of my research, even like the work that they gave me in the class and then outside of the class, just making sure that I understood the skill set that I had.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, the boot camp for me was really it was a really good experience, and it was also interesting because I was like, wow, so like I can really transition within 10 weeks, have a fully built portfolio, and then like apply for jobs. Like that was like that part was kind of weird. I mean, after going through like, you know, a 4 year, you know, institution, and then you're like, wait, I can just do this in 10 weeks. So yeah, so that was interesting. But yeah, for me it was positive. Obviously I didn't have to wait too long to land anything. And I definitely would suggest for people who are ready and committed to jumping into something, you know, 10 weeks or however many weeks it is, I definitely would recommend kind of that fast track accelerator.
Mm. Okay. And so it sounds like I'm going to speak like from a point of view where like I quote unquote don't know, but it sounds like the whole like getting those skills set or like that skill, those skills and your portfolio, like starting it and then also, well, I don't know, like did you start the program, like the boot camp without having a portfolio at all? I mean, you were in design, so I'm assuming that you did, or was it different? Did it need to change?
Yeah, so I actually just started from scratch with a brand new portfolio. So the portfolio that I had previously, like I mentioned, I worked at an agency and then I worked in-house, but it was no work that I could show. So typically when you work for an agency, you can't show that work. So I was like, that it just like let's just start over. I'm going the UX route anyway. I did actually have some graphic design work now that I think about it that I had added onto my portfolio. So I had like my UX section and then I had my graphic design section that I just pulled over into the new portfolio. But yeah, for me, it was really starting over, which I appreciated and I liked because I felt like, okay, let's like refresh. You know, I've grown as a not only now transitioning into UX, but like also grown in the design space. So yeah, it was a completely new portfolio and I just brought over some other projects.
Okay. Okay. So yes, it sounds like the portfolio was a big deal too in helping you land like your first job in UX.
Yeah.
Um, so you did the boot camp, then 3 months later you start your first UX job. Like how was that? Like I know you've been at Caterpillar for a while now. Did you start? Is that was that your first one?
So that was actually my second. I actually did a short stint at Redbox. It was a contract role, and it was
Okay.
really interesting interesting because I was like, I wasn't really sure kind of going in what to expect. I mean, it was a new UX role, so I was excited. Um, but it was really good. I was there for a short amount of time, but I got to, so the thing that's really cool, as you know about UX, is it's not always like digital products. It can also be physical products. So the Redbox, they also had their platform on the Roku. So I got to do a little bit of work, like actually working with the Roku and Roku design. So that was different. It was still an interface, but it was different than like, yeah, it was different than the phone and the computer. So it was really good. I learned a lot. I always something I tell my students is like, no matter when you start any job, like go in there as like an intern almost. And like if you've ever done an internship, you go in there, they want you to do good work, yes, but like you also go in there just trying to learn everything, trying to understand everything, trying to learn everything, and just really trying to be a sponge. So with that being my first role, I really went in with that in mind. So yeah, I was there for a short amount of time before jumping over to Caterpillar, but it was really exciting work.
Cool. Did you go through like an agency, like a contracting agency, or was this like something that someone had like reached out and then you continued the conversation from there?
Yeah, it was actually a staffing agency that I went through. So I would definitely recommend staffing agencies for creative and technical roles. They like it is their job to place you. So I always think that, it's always good to have someone working on your behalf to find you something. And then you also, looking on your own. So that definitely paid off for me. And I went on several interviews through that agency. And then they also had me working during that time that I wasn't working. I was doing other
Mm,
like contract, like graphic design work and stuff like that. So I would definitely recommend the staffing agency route.
okay, yeah, that's good to know. Good to know. I feel like I caught on to staffing agencies like a little later in the game, and I was just like, I don't know what this is. And then it's just like, oh, this is what this is. I should have been like, I should have been here. But okay, so that's great.
Yeah, once you get in, it's good. But once you get in, it's great. But it is kind of like weird at first because it's like kind of unnatural. But not unnatural, but it's like a headhunter service. But I get it. It is something that's like, what is this at first? But no, it's great. They place you, and it's also good because they have relationships with these companies, so they know what they're looking for out of portfolios. They know, what kind of interview questions have been asked in the past. So I sound like a recruiter, but my experience was pretty good.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Let's talk about Caterpillar for a little bit. So I know you've been there for a while now. What do you actually do there? And like what is Caterpillar?
Yeah, so I work on the digital side of the products at Caterpillar. So basically, if you can imagine, if someone's out on a job site, someone who's actually using the machines, I work on some of the digital platforms that some of the site managers would be using to kind of oversee where everything is, where's all of their equipment, is it functioning properly? Like you can kind of think of it as if you had like a fleet of cars and different people are doing different things and you want to know where they are. Do they need oil changes? What's happening with everything and just ways to manage different things, different sites. I work on the digital products for those. So a lot of the UI work, a lot of, again, how it works, just trying to, actually make sure that we're actually building a product that they want, a product that they can use. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, just making sure that, we're delivering on our end because they are, the ones that are actually using our products. So like, it's interesting because for a lot of people, they work at companies where they actually use the product. So like if you work at Apple, like I used to work at Apple and it was cool because I had a Mac, I had the phone, I had the iPod when it first came out. So you go through this journey with this company and you're able to speak from a perspective of someone who actually uses the products. So it is different when you're on the other end and you're not out there using the machinery. You're not out there on these job sites. So you really have to rely on the research and do really thorough research to make sure that you even understand what these people want. So that was it was kind of a challenge at first because it's unnatural. You know, you have to learn to rely on the research, which is how we're trained, but still it's, you know, getting into it, it's a little bit of a challenge, but yeah, that's pretty much what we do.
Oh, yeah, that is actually that's kind of intense because I don't I'm trying to think. I think for as long as I've been like in UX, I haven't had an experience where I'm like the like creating or helping to create a product that I don't use too. So yeah, that that's like super relying on research. And it's like if you're not doing that, then you are like literally for real in the dark. So
Yep. Yep.
that's intense.
No, it definitely is. It really if you were not good at UX research or you never really relied on it before, you will definitely rely on it when you have to come at it from the other end. So, yeah, but but overall been, you know, a really really good experience.
No, that's cool. How is it like working with the people that you work with? So like different roles. I feel like well, I don't feel like it is like it's a fact. Research is often overlooked, and so sometimes sometimes it's like hard to like inject it into the team or like to make people feel or think that it's actually like, oh, we got to do this. Like, it's not going to set us back. We're not like wasting time or like slowing
Hmm.
down with research. Like, how do you, I know you're not like specifically in research, but how are you working with different roles in what you do?
Yeah, so we actually have a pretty small team. And so we all really work together. So whenever there's any research being done, it's passed off to us so that we understand what it was. We do a lot of usability testing, which is always great. We're testing early and often so that we can really understand, you know, what it is that we're doing, and making sure that we're hitting the mark. So the user research has been baked into our process, which has been really good. Working with all of, you know, business analysts and project managers and the developers, like we really have a pretty close relationship in terms of how often we work and how everyone likes to work, which is also important. So things definitely run a lot more smoothly when you incorporate everyone and everyone gets to see and understand everything. When there's been like a full usability test done, when we tested many things, then we get a report. So everyone, you know, there's a meeting and we all go over it. So everyone really knows what's going on. There's no one that is really left in the dark about decisions that we're making and why we're making those decisions. We're all pretty clear on things from, you know, like the research perspective. And then, you know, when we have strategy sessions to really try to map out everything, we, you know, share those findings out. So it's a pretty tight knit team that I work on for this particular for these particular products. So that's really how we keep the communication going and making sure that, you know, we're all working together.
Yeah, you mentioned something that I want to talk about a little bit more for the like I don't remember like what you said word for word, but you talked about like how people like to work. Can you talk a little bit more like about why that's important like for your team and how you typically like to work and like where you fit in I guess that setting.
Yeah, so like in terms of like how people like to work, I think, you know, making sure that we all have certain meetings on our calendars, so that we can all stay in sync. So especially when it comes to like the development team, making sure that we're meeting often, which we do like several times a week to just see what's being developed, to see why it was, you know, maybe developed in a way or any challenges. So I think that's been really good. I think in terms of like how everyone likes to work, we all, I would say, pretty much like even pre, you know, COVID, we're kind of a remote team.
Mhm.
Everyone was kind of sitting in different areas. So in that way, like everything is, I mean, nothing really changed in terms of like how everyone had to switch and kind of pivot. Some people went to, working from home, but we had people that were already working from home because, we all sit in different places in different countries,
Mm.
all over the world. So just really understanding, like we have teams in India. So when we're just waking up, they're pretty much finishing their day. So making sure that we're answering their questions, asking them questions that we have to, need to move throughout the day, and vice versa. So yeah, I mean, just pretty, it's a pretty, for me at least, pretty relaxed environment compared to other places that I've been. So yeah, just really, making sure that you understand, and I would say definitely, being flexible.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, flexibility is a necessity, especially now, for sure. And when it comes to like what you do, and I guess how you work, what is it that you need as a UX? Would you call yourself a UX UI designer? Is that what your role or like title at work is?
Yeah, so my role, it's really everything. It's traditionally UI, but I'm sure you get thrown into other projects that require different levels of the UX process, and different UX tools for you to kind of pull out of your toolbox. So yeah, it's really kind of everything. We do have a dedicated UX researcher, but you still have to know how to read those usability reports, pull out what you need to pull out,
Mm.
and all that good stuff. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So as like the UX UI everything person, what is it that you typically need from your teammates to be successful in what you do in order to do your work?
I think the biggest thing for me is just communication. Because I think for most people, like when you're ready to work and sit down and like get things done, you just kind of want, at least for me, I like to kind of just knock things out and scratch things off of my to-do list.
Yeah.
So as much communication as I can have. I love Slack. It's, the best way to kind of stay communicated, in communication with everyone around you. So I would say the biggest thing for me is just clarity and communication. Make sure that I understand what it is that I need to do, and then also communication.
Yeah, communication is definitely key. So let's kind of switch gears a little bit. We kind of started talking about this a little earlier, but you have a UX course that you started and have continued to run even through the pandemic. So what gave you the idea to do this? And like first, let's just start with like what is this? So I would love for you to introduce it, and like what gave you the idea to do it?
So I always have been like some kind of like entrepreneur business owner, even from like, I think I started my first business in college, because I couldn't find a job. And I was like, okay, what is this? I have always been very just always wanting to do something, to own something, to do something. So that's when I started my first business. I actually recently just closed it, which is really interesting. But when it came to like the UX part, I was like, okay, I want to do something. I'm just not really sure. What I have this itch. Like I feel like as entrepreneurs, we have this itch to like always do something. We're always creating. We always have ideas. And I started off doing one-to-one coaching. That was my research. That was the UX researcher in me. Like that was the easiest way for me to figure out like what do people want, where do they need help, where are they struggling, why are they struggling, where are they coming at this from, like what angle, So like I said, for me, like I was a previous web designer, so like are you a previous web designer, a previous graphic designer? Are you coming at this from, a totally new industry? So I used that as I was doing free sessions, and I was using that as my research, to really see what I wanted to do. And then from there, I started doing like one-to-one paid sessions. So once I felt, confident and I was seeing results, that's always been really important to me, like seeing results, through the people that I was helping. I started doing one-to-one, like paid sessions, either like one-offs or monthly sessions and things like that. Um, and then from there, I always had the idea to do a course, but it was way too ambitious for me because I was just like, that seems like a lot of work. Um, and I actually started working with a business coach last year, and that was probably one of the best things that I ever did. I started working with the business coach, and like during our second meeting, he was like, "Okay, so you need to do this course." And I was like, "Yeah, I do, but it just seems like a lot of work." And he was like, "Oh, no, no, all you have to do is this and that and this and that." And he's like, "I'll help you." So it was through that process that I actually developed the course and had the tools and understanding of how to develop a course. And so, yeah, so the course started, the first course kicked off in October of last year, so October of 2019. And we've been having cohorts ever since.
That's awesome. So like what do you um I guess like what do you do as this creator of this course? Or like what is this course supposed to do for people?
Yeah, so it helps people go from beginner to experience. So there is no, requirement to come into the course. The only requirement is that you know that you want to do this because it is a commitment. It's an investment, and it also is a time commitment because it's a 16-week program. And so you start the course, and then by the time you end the course, you have a portfolio that you've developed throughout the course, and then you're able to go and get jobs. So not only are you learning UX, like I like to say that the way that I've developed the course, like learning UX is like the low hanging fruit. Like you're going to learn that. Like that's going to happen. But the other thing that I've incorporated into the course, like things that I didn't see um, in my program, and also things that I saw when I actually started working. Now I was like, okay, it would be really beneficial for aspiring UX designers to know this stuff, like things like biases in UX, how they happen, why they happen, and how to overcome them. Things like how to work with development teams. Although you may not have context because you've never done it before, there is value in someone actually telling you and showing you like this is kind of how it works. These are the questions that you should be asking. These are when you should be asking them. These are when you should be showing your designs, things like that. And I like to tell my students, like, save this portion of the class for when you actually get started and you have notes and references to go back to. Things like how do you present to a management team? How do you present to your design team? Just things that you wouldn't necessarily think about, and I think are really key for first year UX designers, especially when you get your first job and you have all the imposter syndrome. It's really and helpful to equip students with, the ability to have some level of confidence when they go into these situations.
I feel like it's always that part with developers that's left out, like communicating with developers or working with developers or understanding what developers are saying. So, because at the end of the day, you're gonna be working with developers. So,
Yeah.
who like who are they and what are they talking about? That is literally the only thing that was missing from the boot camp that I did. I was like focused more on product management, but still like even more so, it's just like that developer interface is key. So that's awesome. That's good to hear. So as far as setting up this course, you mentioned you were able to have some help, which is good. I feel like anyone who has started a course has reached out to someone else or has taken a course on how to start a course.
Hmm.
So what was that like for you? You already kind of mentioned like how you started that out and like how you began to learn. Were there any like big challenges that you came across?
Yeah, so it was partly about developing the course, but really I knew that I wanted someone that was going to help me take my business seriously in whatever direction that was going to go in. And so for me, hiring a business coach, I personally believe in coaching. I went to school for what I went to school for, and that was not business. So if I want to be an effective business person, I believe I need to go and figure out, find the resources to do it. So yeah, just everything from setting up your systems to making sure that your course is running the way that it should be running, dealing with clients, like everything, just really just equip me to just with the tools, and just it also taught me things that I didn't know. and went and did further research on, just to make sure that, I am doing things as efficiently as possible and I'm working smarter and not harder. So all that stuff. But yeah, in terms of developing the course, I think that it was instrumental. There were so many things, and even just like promoting the course, like how do you actually do that? And how do you do sales funnels and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, all that stuff that like you spend hours Googling. It's just really nice to have someone say, here's how you do it. Here's how I've done it. Here's how I've seen other people do it. So that kind of knowledge for me was very, very, very valuable. So I would definitely, I mean, clearly I'm a proponent of coaching. The other part I didn't say about the course is that it's not just a digital course, it's also paired with coaching. So it's 16 weeks because I'm your coach throughout the program. Like, I don't really believe in just like, here's a thing, go do it. Not something as serious as a life changing course, which has been life changing for a lot of people that have gone on and gotten jobs. So the other key component is that you have me personally as a coach for the entire 16 weeks.
Oh yeah, that is good. I sometimes wonder about, the different programs that are just like available online or like on Skillshare. And it's like, okay, cool. Like you can learn about this stuff, but it's different in application. And it's always
Yes.
helpful to have someone who understands like what that means before you actually get in there and have to experience it for yourself, or before you just get denied because you don't understand like how that application works.
Yeah.
So that's awesome to hear.
Yeah, and then even as you're interviewing, so like I never like any of my students will tell you, like I never drop anyone as a coaching client. I this past week had two students who got jobs in the same week. So last week was a very big week for me.
Hey,
Yes, and I was in constant.
congrats.
Thank you. I was in constant communication, with one of them is especially, and so to get that message was just, confirmation. I was like, and it's weird because when you're on the end of looking for a job, everything is just taking so long, and but I'm like, it's gonna happen. Like, number one, we're in a pandemic, but number two, people are hiring, so
Mm.
it's gonna happen. You just kind of have to take the opportunities as they come, and you learn from one interview to another. But yeah, I never drop anyone as a client. So, I see you through the entire journey. So which I think is very, very important, to just have someone to ask questions to. And hey, I went on this interview, they asked this question, this is how I answered it, but I'm not really sure if that was right. Can you give me some context for this? I have this design challenge, like all that stuff. Like, it's nice to, be able to speak to someone and not have to try to Google your way through everything.
Oh yeah, that can take up a lot of time. I was talking about this with someone else before. Actually, during the interview I had with Krista, just about like asking questions and being able to have people who are available to answer those questions for you, and not necessarily taking up a whole bunch of time, wasting time, like trying to find them, and they might not even be the right ones.
No, definitely. It's valuable. It's super valuable.
For sure. So it sounds like things are going well with the course. Yay, good. As far as anything that you would do differently, just kind of like looking back and seeing like where you are now, is there anything that you might have switched up to make getting to where you are a little bit easier?
That's a really good question. I think for me, it's always just like finding the balance between work and your 9 to 5 and your 5 to 9, which I still haven't figured out. Someone actually said the other day, and I'm still trying to figure out if I agree with this, that like there's no such thing as balance, but there is a such thing as time management, which I know I'm very bad at. So just trying to figure out like that time management piece for me. I think that's an area where a lot of entrepreneurs struggle. So that definitely, I would definitely say, like, had I had better time management, I would have other things done in my business. But also, it's like, okay, like you work all the time on the weekends, you do deserve time to just do nothing. So finding that balance is hard for me, but still working through that.
That's good. I agree with that 100%. I feel like I feel you when you say that. I think it was like two times maybe this week someone said something about, me working and then still doing the channel. And I'm just like, they're like, oh, how do you do it all? Or it's like, you have like you're so organized or whatever. And I'm just like, if you don't know, like, it looks ridiculous over
No,
here.
you're
Very chaotic.
right.
Still trying to
Hmm.
figure it out. But we've been talking about your course. Like, how can people enroll if people are interested in UX or want to get started, or even want you as a coach? I don't know if you do coaching outside of the course too, but how can people go about enrolling in your program?
Yeah, so there are a number of different ways. If you go to ashleyjanelle.com, you will find the tab for the course. You can submit your application there. You can email me at ashley@ashleyjanelle.com. So there are different ways, but those would be probably the two. And then we get you an application and get you started. And if, like I said, if we're a match, then, we get on the phone and we talk about, what are your goals, what you've currently been doing to kind of reach this goal and things like that to get you in the course. So those are probably the two most popular ways.
Okay, cool. And just for the people who are interested, when you talk about like, oh, this is going to be a time commitment and people are going to need to be serious when they're kind of going
Mhm.
through the program, what types of, I guess, things will they be doing? I don't know, like for what you can say, and also like what type of time commitment, I guess, are they looking at?
Yeah, so I typically say about 15 hours a week. So really the way that I've seen students break it down is most if not all of my students have been full time working outside of the course. So most students will take an hour or two every day after work, and then they really hit it hard on the weekends. So again, it's 16 weeks. It's not the end of your life. It's 16 weeks to dedicate to the rest of your life. And that's what I've seen that has worked out the best. And so through that 16 weeks, we're in constant communication. Any questions that you have, super, available. We use Slack to do that. And yeah, that's pretty much the time commitment of it all, which I think is definitely, which I know is definitely doable. It's, like I said, you break it down throughout the week and then on the weekends, like it's definitely doable to get everything done. So yeah.
Cool. All right, y'all heard her. So if you're interested, hit up Ashley. Her contact information and website and all of that will be in the description. So check out the resources for more. But that concludes like the main part of our interview. Now we're going to get into like some random questions just because
Okay.
I want to know the answers. And so, first one, I think I'm going to ask this to everybody now because it's starting to become my favorite question. What book, or is there a book or a movie that has changed your life?
A book or a movie that's changed my life.
Or has had a significant impact on your life?
A significant impact on my life. I'm not really sure about that one. I think so. One movie that I really liked that I saw very early and that I always watch, I'm sure a lot of us always watch, is The Devil Wears Prada. And that movie was interesting for me. It's a phenomenal movie, but it was really good because it was the story of this young woman who was so hungry and so driven that she did things that she would not have in ordinary, in other circumstances done. Um, but I saw a lot of myself in a young person who just wanted whatever job that was, that she deemed important enough to get her to the next level. So I love that movie. I identify with the work ethic, with the hustle, with all of that. So yeah, I would probably say that was definitely one movie where I saw myself and I see myself every time I watch that movie.
I've actually never seen it.
Oh my God.
So I'll put it on the list.
Yes, it's on TV.
I know. Like I Yeah, I would see it on TV and I was just like, oh, this is on. Click. Like, and I would just go to something else. I never watched it, but I'll loop back around. I'll loop back around.
Yes.
Okay, boom. Second question. Have you been snacking? I don't know, for like work from home. Have you been snacking like crazy? And if so, like what's been your main quarantine snack?
Um, have I been snacking like crazy? Not really snacking. Just more so eating just more. Just more so eating more. So like probably sneaking in like another small meal like when I feel hungry. So like, the stretch between lunch and dinner, like sneaking in something small has been my thing. So like whether that's like chili or like soup or like a bagel or something like that, just like that's kind of been my go-to.
Okay, that's real healthy. I'm over here like I'm not there. Okay. What's gonna be my last question? If you could be anywhere in the world right now, where would it be and why? Just like pretend COVID is not a thing.
Probably like Bali. So that was one of the trips that I had planned for this year, before everything got closed down. So like anything that's like not a city or not just the norm, somewhere where the air is cleaner, the food is different, a lot healthier, water, sun, where I don't have to wear a coat, just very different. Very different than
You're,
Chicago. Yeah, probably
I was
Bali.
gonna say you're in Chicago, right? Okay. Yeah, nah, I
Yeah,
like it's cold up here, but I don't know what Chicago be doing up there. I haven't visited yet. Um,
girl.
but I know I've heard. Well, boom, that is it. So, thank you all for listening, for tuning in. Thank you again, Ashley, for jumping on with us and giving us a download of like what your life has been like in UX and what you're doing right now.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. And again, I love this platform. I love seeing the videos on Twitter and everywhere that you post them. So again, thank you so much for having me. This is my last interview of 2020. So thank you.
Oh, cool. Yay. We get to
Yes.
take the last flight. Last but not but cool. For anyone listening, tuning in, if you like what you heard and you want to stick around for the ride, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell as well to be posted every time we post new content. We post new content every other Wednesday. And we are also on social media. You can hit us up at Unpacked Angles on Instagram and Twitter. Ashley, I know you have social media handles, so you can go ahead and shout those out.
Yeah, so I'm at the Ashley Janelle on Instagram, the Ashley Janelle, no E at the end of Janelle on Twitter, because Twitter and their character limits. And then Ashley Janelle on Instagram, Ashley Janelle on LinkedIn, Ashley Janelle on Clubhouse. So I'm Ashley Janelle everywhere if you want to find me. And then also we have a Facebook group, the UX Career Accelerator group, for those of you who are interested in UX, want to jump in. And then also it's really for everybody, because I enjoy the conversations and having other industry professionals jump in. So again, the Facebook group is the UX Career Accelerator group. But on my Twitter, the link in my Twitter and the link in my bio and my Instagram all have all the links to where you can find me. My website, the ashleyjanelle.com. You can go to my Instagram or my Twitter to get the link tree to go everywhere.
Yep, and we'll put all of Ashley's contact information in the description too, to make it a little shortcut there. But yes, hit her up if you're interested in UX or if you want to just be part of the conversation, and you can go from there. But in addition to that, we also have our website that you can hit us up on and sign up for the newsletter. It goes out every so often. Lord knows it's just been a lot this year, so we've kind of been holding back, but there's going to be one going out closer to the end of this year. And so if you're interested in getting the newsletter, you can sign up on www.unpackedangles.com. And that is it. That's a wrap. Thank you for tuning in again. And as always, let me know what you're doing, what you're working on, what you got going on. And until next time, y'all, deuces. Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.